Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Now the APC Buhari-led administration clocked 2 on the 29th of May. Now, analysts say the administration has achieved a lot in ending oil smuggling, fighting corruption, the fight against Boko Haram, to restore peace and socio-economic activities in the northeast. Now, others include the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative that has led to bilateral cooperation with the Moroccan government in the revitalization of 11 blending plants across the country. This is in addition to a bumper harvest, resulting in a drop in the importation of rice and the triggering of export of some staple foods to other countries, mainly in West Africa. Now, among the government's key programs in the effort to reposition the country are the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, the Treasury Single Account, TSA, that has continued to block leakages, and the Social Investment Program. Notable is the Conditional Cash Transfer Scheme to reach 1 million of the poorest and most vulnerable households. There are more. The federal government, for instance, just yesterday announced the setting aside of 100 billion naira annually for its social housing scheme. Now, how has the administration fared in the last 2 years, and how have these programs of the governing party been replicated in the states? And what are the challenges? What prospects for the years ahead? These are some of the issues we'll be raising tonight. But first, let's get to see this report by Abdullahi Garba Birnunkudu.
At home, we face enormous challenges: insecurity, pervasive corruption, the hitherto unending and seemingly impossible fuel and power shortages are the immediate concerns. We are going to tackle them head-on.
This summarizes the 3 promises the Buhari administration made to Nigerians during campaigns. 2 years down the line, it is generally agreed that the government, under its change agenda, has impacted positively on both the socio-economic well-being and the conduct of Nigerians. The history of the northeastern part of the country, hitherto considered as no-go of the government in the provision of needed military hardware and morale booster to those at the war front. It is evident that thousands of internally displaced persons are moving back to their homes.
But for the Boko Haram insurgency, we have to give it to this government that they have done marvelously well in containing the insurgency. They have not been totally defeated. If anybody tells you so, that person is economical with the truth. But they have been degraded to such a level that they no longer pose a potent threat to the corporate existence of this country. It's a work in progress. The governors of the North are ever willing to extend a hand of fellowship, a hand of cooperation to the federal institution towards enthroning peace in the region, because peace is an absolute prerequisite for any development of a society.
On economic diversification, government's commitment to revive the agricultural and mining sectors as major revenue earners to the country is clear. The Anchor Borrowers Program, the rice production and the fertilizer distribution program are yielding positive results, turning the country to the path of exporter of food rather than an importer for local consumption. Added to this, through an executive order, the government is promoting made-in-Nigeria products and ease of doing business for investors.
And I assure Nigerians, by end of October, our dollar, our naira will be about 200 naira to $1. Let people challenge me if it's not so. Because we are going to get a lot of exportable items. And if you export items, you bring in dollar. And that's how the value of your country currency will grow.
It has not been easy, the economy has not been easy, but you can see that they are focused. They have already established certain programs that they want to achieve. So 2 years is a reasonable time to assess how they have been doing. But if you were to ask me to give them marks, I would say they have scored well over 70%.
To add to this, government is generating employment through the N-Power initiative, with more than 176,000 beneficiaries so far captured nationwide, while jobs are being created through massive road construction running into thousands of kilometers. It is on record that more than 1 trillion naira has been pumped into capital projects in the last 2 years of the administration. This is evident in the rehabilitation of the Nigerian railway, with the completion of Abuja to Kaduna rail projects and the ongoing project of 150 kilometers per hour Lagos-Ibadan and Lagos-Calabar rail lines. Perhaps there is no other administration in the history of Nigeria that has pursued the war against corruption and ensured financial discipline like the Buhari administration. The introduction of the Treasury single account has saved a lot to the government coffers, while billions of naira have also been recovered from corrupt individuals. In fact, this has raised the integrity status of Nigeria and the Committee of Nations.
Today, I'm not even a chairman, I'm just a member of the Senate Committee on Petroleum Upstream. I have a copy of the NNPC budget, clearly detailing out every item of expenditure that they plan to make in the coming year. I never saw that as a chairman, and nobody in the National Assembly ever saw that.
The fight against corruption, I as an individual, if that's the only thing the president is able to do, it will be a blessing to Nigeria, because corruption has permeated every stratus of the Nigerian economy. And as a result of that, for a government that is willing to build Nigeria again from foundation, and people are shouting, let him just do, he cannot jump into the fray and say, what the former government or the past administration had done, he just need to continue. He will fail woefully than that administration. He has to get his priorities, plan them, and follow them. And in the course of following them, you have to know that economy is very, very essential and important.
As the administration clocked 2 years, political analysts are advocating the sustainability of the achievements, with more efforts towards security in the areas with such challenges beyond the northeast, as security, they say, is the catalyst for development. In Abuja, I am Abdullahi Gerba-Bernokudu.
Well, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. We'd like to welcome to this program Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, who is the governor of Kano State. Mr. Governor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right. Also here tonight, we have Dr. Chidia Madwikwe, Managing Director, Nigerian Film Corporation. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, and thank you, viewers.
Right. We're also joined by Professor Kabir Matu, who is Commissioner for Agriculture, Kaduna State. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cyril.
Okay. Let me also welcome to this program Toby Johannes Wujuola of Emerging Leaders Economic Forum. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Right. And also joining us from our Lagos Network Center is Governor Abiola Ajimobi, the Governor of Oyo State. He's in our Ibadan Center. Thanks for being with us, Mr.
It is my pleasure to join the program.
All right. Now, as we always do, we acquaint you with the procedure. At the appropriate time, you can get to join in the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on air. We advise you take advantage of them. However, for those who will be calling in, we say this every Tuesday. Once your call gets through, at the appropriate time, do us a favor. Reduce the volume of your TV set. Turn down the volume. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And the best way to know that your call has been passed through is you'll see your name appear on screen. Once your name appears on screen, it means that your call has been passed through. We encourage you to just go straight to the point. Don't bother too much about the greetings. Just go straight to the point and just make it quick, concise, and be brief so others can get on the platform. Right. So once again, welcome to Tuesday Live. Thanks for being with us. Let's begin to look at 2 years of this administration. It's an APC-led administration. The president said at his inauguration that this would be the governing party, not the ruling party. Well, 29th of May, that's a day that's significant to Nigeria in many ways. Let's get your impressions about the 29th.
Thank you very much. I think it's a huge success, especially when we look at the issues when this government came in. We had so many challenges ranging from political, in the economy, even in the social aspect of it. But let me start with the security challenges, because whenever a new administration is coming in, the first thing is to take a stock of what is happening. It's just like a builder. You have to make some soil test before you start putting on your structures. Otherwise, you get some cracks and some collapse. So when Buhari came in and all other governments came in, both APC and other and PDP governments, the major issue at stake was the insecurity in the northeastern part of this country, and by implication to the rest of the northern parts of the country. Because if you look at some big cities like in Kano and in Plateau, even here in Abuja and in other parts of Kogi State, you find that there was incursion of the insurgency of Boko Haram. So when Buhari came in, the situation was so terrible, and in fact some people lost hope that Nigeria may not recover again, especially when you look at some of the most of the local governments in Borno State were in the hands of insurgency. The same thing in Yobe and some part of Adamawa State. So when Mr. President came in, the first thing that he did was to reorganize the security agencies, especially the military and the police, so that he could build confidence in them so that they could react immediately. And also, he took some time to dialogue with our neighboring countries, Cameroon, Chad, and Niger, so that there must be coordination in order to take care of the insurgency. So he took a tour of this country and he got their confidence, while the military even moved its headquarters to Maiduguri to ensure that this local government have been recovered to the nation. So I think Mr. President has done a lot in checking the insurgency, and a lot of peace is now back. There is hope now. I think business has started even coming in Maiduguri. You see, even though there are still some elements of insurgency, especially the women who have been trained in the Boko Haram camps are still, making some explosion. But that one is not unexpected, but it will take time. But at large, we have to say that I think a lot has been achieved in terms of security.
All right, we'll come back to you. But at this point, let's go to our Ibadan Center and then get the impressions of Governor Ajimobi on the 29th of May.
Thank you very much. I'm happy joining you. I think first and foremost, we must define the purpose and objective of government. And the objective of government is the protection and promotion of the socio-economic activities of its citizenry. In doing so, you have what we call a pyramid of development. And I must say, without any equivocation, that the president and this APC government has tried to stick and adhere to this pyramid of development, starting basically with peace and security. When we came in, APC as a government, there was no peace in the northeast of the country. Neither was there peace and security in the south-south. You have youth restiveness. Even in the southeast, we had problems of Mossab, IPOB, and others. And this government, headed by our president, President Muhammadu Buhari, came right away to say, among other things, our objective is to ensure that we have peace and security in Nigeria, particularly the threatening of our security and peaceful coexistence in the Northeast. And there is no doubt in my mind that he has substantially achieved this objective. He has brought peace and security and confidence to the Northeast. There's nowhere in the world where you will not have disturbances, insurgencies. But the moment you reach the threshold of peaceful coexistence, which the president has reached now in the Northeast, I think it deserved our commendation and support. Similarly, in the Southeast, in the South-South, the acting president at one time went there, held discussions, dialogue with the people, and that has substantially calmed the nerves of frayed nerves of the people in the South-South, for which recommendations were pouring. So in terms of the basic requirement of our pyramid of development, this administration has done very well. Second, quickly, is the area of the economy. The president promised to resuscitate the economy. You see, we had a monolithic economy. We are dependent on oil, and oil has crashed. Crude oil market price has crashed, and both in volume and in value. And we were not able to make much in terms of income accruable to Nigeria. But what has the president done? He has emphasized diversification of the economy. Not only diversifying the economy, he has leveraged on what I call our comparative advantage, which is agriculture. And today in Nigeria, we are happy that starting from the north to the south, we are now having substantial production in some of our staple foods. We have rice now in abundance, we are exporting, we are doing this. Not only this, we are saving foreign exchange. But apart from that, there's one basic ingredient that can destroy any economy, and that is corruption. The president has faced it, and I must take this opportunity to say that corruption, what is corruption? Is adulteration of anything that is pure. It is the dilution, it is the deformation of anything that is pure, be it financial corruption, be it spiritual corruption, be it process corruption, and be it generally communication corruption. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. There was a time people were carrying the rumor around. Our president is dead. Apart from being sinful to say that, I must say, when you carry rumors, when you tell lies, when you achieve true subterfuge lies, then you are corrupt. So I don't want us to limit corruption to financial corruption. Finally, everybody in Nigeria must join hands in fighting corruption. The president alone cannot fight corruption. So if I can stop there for now, or else you give me more time, I can go on and on. Thank you very much.
We'll return to you as we go on in the program and raise center-specific areas, find out just how well this administration has done in those. But even as we were with Governor Biola Ajimobi in Ibadan studio, we were joined in the studio here in Abuja by Professor Pat Utomi, who's a professor of political economy and management expert. He's a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants in Nigeria, founder, Center for Value in Leader, and former presidential candidate. Yes, a former presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress. Thanks for being with us here tonight.
With pleasure.
Right. Okay, we'll come to you as we go on with this conversation, but let me put the same question to Dr. Chidi Amaduikwe, Managing Director of the Nigerian Film Corporation. It's been 2 years now. What generally would you say these 2 years have shown about this administration?
Yeah, I would just go straight to say that the president, because there's a hashtag I just saw recently which said PMB Triumph at 2. So I want that to be the focus of how we are going to view this assessment of the administration in the last 2 years, that President Muhammad Buhari have triumphed at 2 years of his administration. You know, some wordsmiths will tell us that when you are left with history, when you forget your history, you are left with hysteria. No matter how the opposition want to stampede us from forgetting the past, we cannot today be comparing how the president have fared after 2 years without knowing where we are coming from or how it was before. President Buhari has failed in the last 2 years because he has triumphed over issues of corruption. Before he came into power, we are aware that NNPC was running a deficit of about 30 to 40 billion every month. We are at the introduction hearing the senator saying today they can even see the budgetary book of NNPC. In the past, it was not so. If one agency of government was running monthly deficit of 30 billion naira, you can see the kind of rot we were into. Now, we were borrowing to feed consumption before Buhari came into leadership. And if we have continued on that path of borrowing to feed consumption, we can take example from what is happening to another country called Venezuela. For the last 50, 60 days, they have been on the street rioting, which means if President Muhammad Buhari did not assume leadership of this country, and we continue with that pattern of borrowing to feed corruption, probably today there won't be Nigeria seated peacefully as we are sitting down here. So you find out that President Buhari have triumphed. And above all, I'm happy that the governor from Oyo State tangentially mentioned it. The issue of how we have been wishing him dead. There's no president in this country that has been so wished dead by the opposition as President Buhari. And today, at 2 years in office, he has also triumphed above death. And we know God will continue to give him more life, that he will triumph and will be alive to complete this tenure and even go to the next tenure. As a party, we are blessed that at this point in the history of this country, we have a man like Buhari that can come with the maturity of his age, with his patience that can only come with age, that can hold the very weak fabric of nationhood and maintain it the way it is. I was making comment the other day that if our dear General Yakubu Gowon and Ojukwu were at the age of 72, when they were both leading either Eastern Nigeria or the federal government, there will be no Biafran war. You can see that the age of Mr. President meant that he was able to maintain that fatherly decorum over irritations that have been pouring from everywhere. And so maintaining the unity of this country has been at the front burner under his leadership. And so that hashtag PMB Triumph R2 is very apt.
Okay. Thank you. We'll look at a few specifics. But Professor Kabir Batu.
Well, yes, just like he rightly said, I think it's very important for us to understand where we are coming from. As a people, we are very forgetful. Easily we try to rush over, our immediate past, in the name of the present and looking at what the future holds. We will only appreciate the level of, attainment of this government, especially at the center and in several states, if we place it against the backdrop of where we are coming from. Remember, sometimes in 2014 and towards 2015, a lot of international research institutions did predict that if Nigeria would continue the way it was going, certainly it will cease to exist by the end of 2015. And that wasn't just a heresy. It wasn't just a sensational statement that was coming from people who did not wish us well. But it was a product of well-researched thesis, arising from the way the national economy was run, from the way the society in general was confronted with very gargantuan problem of apparent failure in the area of leadership, especially at the center. The issue of Northeast, the issue of war against corruption, the revolution in agriculture, and so many, other attainments that are being reeled out as achievements of this government, in my view, purely came as a result of the desire of government, not just at the center, but including states, to be able to move the country out of that of what you might probably call a precipice, a stage of decadence paralysis, into a nationhood. And perhaps that explains the level of socioeconomic difficulties that the citizens have faced, especially in the last 1 year, and the apparent picture, the light that we seem to be seeing appearing at the end of the tunnel, especially with the end of the last cropping season and the efforts that government is putting this time around in the area of agriculture, you know, youth empowerment, yes, the war against corruption. Anybody you might wish to say anything about it, you might challenge the methodology, and no two people can, if they so wish, decide to approach one particular thing in the same manner. Everybody will have his own way of doing it. But to say the least, I think it's important to understand that really the fact that Nigeria remains a nation 2 years after that global prediction that we are going to collapse in itself is a very important milestone that we need to try to keep up, build upon in order to achieve beyond the elections, you know. And I think that's basically the picture that a lot of politicians really have as a focus. But beyond the elections, I think government at all levels must continue to put hands on deck to ensure that, you know, such proactive decisions, very radical policies, regardless of whose ox is actually, you know, offended, you know, to see that we keep moving. Next year, the story certainly will be different, and by the time it's election, once the decision is taken, a lot of political leaders will be surprised at the level at which Nigerians will come out en masse and support the so-called difficulties that people are said to be in today.
All right. Let's hear from Toby Johannes Wojola. And how have these 2 years reflected on the nation, particularly with the youth, who constitute a very important segment?
I think we have seen a serious government. A government that has, first of all, understood the challenges of the people, have understood the problems that the Nigerian youths and the Nigerian people generally are facing from every sector. Understood it from a foundational basis and is setting a strategic, you know, template to be able to fix these problems. Looking at, like my elders have said rightly, we have to look at these issues from a historical point of view. Where are we coming from? We're just saying May 29th, but pre-May 29th, 2015, what was Nigeria in terms of the economy, in terms of security, and in terms of you know, our moral system, the anti-corruption war, so to say. Coming to the economy, for instance, Nigeria, I'll use this example. Nigeria was like a man who was earning, let's say, for instance, let's say ₦1 million a month, and was not saving. And, you know, he was living an expensive life, buying cars on credit, and, you know, had a large house in, let's say, Maitama, for instance, and there was a mortgage running on it. And all of a sudden, his boss tells him, I'm cutting your salary to maybe 300 or 200. And then he still has to maintain his lifestyle. He still has to cater for his children. If he was able to save, if he was able to invest during the period when he was earning large, this will not be you know, he will not be facing any challenges. At this point in time, we have come to realization that for Nigeria to actually compete with other nations, we must be able to come out of a monolithic economy that is focused on just one product and diversify, not just diversifying to being just the supplier of products that are, you know, that are not primary products, but to go into manufacturing, to compete with countries like America, to compete with China. We have to think this way, and this is what we are saying. We're seeing a foundation right now. You know, many a times we hear a lot of complaints and people agitating that things are not, you know, as smooth and as rosy as it is. But then, when we look at the foundation that is being laid, you look at the Anchor Borrowers program that is getting a lot of young people who were unattracted to agriculture at the beginning, or from time. White-collar jobs were the most attractive. But you're seeing people now thinking, or young people, thinking about jobs in farming, jobs in manufacturing, jobs in the creative industry. We're seeing a change in the mentality. Look at the anti-corruption war. It's not just the figures that are banded or the recoveries that are made. It's the mentality that is changing in Nigerians. The fact that we are now saying that we want to go to public office, not just
to earn money now, but to be being conscious of the fact that when you get to public office, there is going to be probity, there's going to be accountability, but knowing that you will get to public office to deliver on a mandate. You are now thinking that I want to become a governor, I want to become a senator because I want to deliver so and so promises to my people, not to earn money, not to have cars. Now we're having a situation where young people are not more looking at some people who are riding in Range Rovers and expensive luxury cars with some oh, this is what I want to be. But we are now questioning wealth, and this is a foundation that is needed, a mindset change. I think so far so good. This administration has done wonderfully well.
All right, Professor Patutomi. Well, perhaps apart from the security challenges and the political stability, the biggest issue this past 2 years was the economy. How would you assess?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I like to see a country as a continuum. It doesn't matter what administration is there, it's one country heading in a certain direction. How have we as a people managed to continue to travel a direction that will bring us a better life for most of our people? We have a youth bulge. Our country is a youth bulge, and we're faced with possibilities of either reaping a demographic dividend or anarchy if we don't manage it well. And so real tests of governing is a function of how we're looking at this future that challenges us, that can bring us great promise or bring us terrible anarchy. Now, how have we dealt with it? Part of the contribution here has talked about predictions that Nigeria would implode in 2015 and all of that. Whenever I hear conversations around that subject, I'm often taken aback about how little Nigerians understand processes that are being discussed. Because that quote-unquote prediction is a tendency to confuse a routine process of the United States government. Every 5 years, the government of the United States does a review of the state of the globe for its own strategic orientation. And it's not even Americans alone. They get think tanks around the world to look at regions of the world where things are going, where they could end up. And these think tanks' work then gets compiled, CIA work, all of that. And a synthesis of it leads to what they call a report of the state of the globe. About 15 or so years ago, 10, that report, looking at Nigeria, said that if things continue the way that they are going, Nigeria would be a failed state by 2015. It didn't say Nigeria would break up, it didn't say all of this. Incidentally, I happen to be one of those who were invited to the next global leaders group to review that, the one that was produced 5 years after this particular one, in Stockholm, in Sweden. Several European prime ministers in the room, and we're discussing not Nigeria, the state of the world, different places, you know. So the point is, we have not run our country very well for a long period of time, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. By 3-4 years ago, we were really in a very dangerous place. Unfortunately, public conversation was not mature enough to understand how bad things were in Nigeria 3-4 years ago. We had this boom, oil prices. We were making so much money from something that we should always treat as a bonus. My thesis is that we should think of every revenue that comes from oil as a bonus. We should plan our economy, think of the future of our children without oil, and that oil should be savings that we use to enhance infrastructure, to invest in long-term things, because you see, that thing put in the ground belongs to all generation of Nigerians, not us today. Those who were born in 200 years have a right, same right to it. And so we either are using it for infrastructure that they can enjoy 200 years from now, or we are saving it somewhere and allowing a cascade of returns from those investments to service today and tomorrow. But we were running things irresponsibly. We're not doing that. And when some of us tried to talk about it, people thought, oh, we're always critical. one of the points that I made over a 10-15 year period was that our budget process should involve a certain peg on how much can go into the so-called distributable pool fund or the FAC account. How much should go into a stabilization fund, which if oil prices were to drop to single digits as they did around 1998, we could draw from and ensure that we can continue budgeting at a certain even keel moving forward. And whatever goes above a certain limit should go to a future fund, which, depending on what structure you take, the Malaysians, for example, with their own future fund, would have some of that investment in their own long-term infrastructure, some invested abroad for flow. The Norwegians have a different strategy, different countries have different strategies for this. What did we do in our own case? When people like me talked about this, they were shouting us down. Mr. Governor, the greatest culprits were state governors. They did such a terrible job of understanding the future of Nigeria. And they wanted all the money shared. They explained away their rights. Oh, it's pouring torrents, how can we save for a rainy day? We're all paying a dear price for it today. And so, where we were going before 2015 was clearly heading to the precipice. We were disaster bound. Unfortunately, things changed. But the question is, we could have been even much more strategic moving forward from then. I am not one to say this ideal was achieved, but we stopped disaster. The question is, how well do we adjust to ensure that tomorrow is safeguarded above today? There's plenty of work to do. It's work in progress. Progress has been made. I hear people complaining about the fight against corruption. In my view, the biggest problem in Nigeria is corruption. It's really crippled our country. We must face it head on. We can adjust, we must adjust how we deal with it, but preventing it from happening is even more important than catching those who were corrupt. Yes, catching them is important, for example, but how do our systems change such that discretion is reduced, such that people can be held easily accountable, systems are transparent? These are the challenges before us, and we need to move forward. There's been some progress, but a lot more is required to be done.
Well, taking it from where Professor Otomi just left off now, we could have done things better. Do you have a feeling, Governor Ganduje, for instance, that the people are seeing what has generally been referred to now as the dividends of democracy trickling down, particularly in the states that make up Nigeria, and that's just not a federal affair?
Yes, of course, you know, there's a lot of expectation, especially when you have a change of government from, especially during the democratic system, where there's an election. During the election, you made a lot of promises and you are elected and you are being sworn in. People are expecting a lot from you. So from my own assessment, I think even though we started on a very, very weak footing because the economy was down, the money that was coming from the federal government went below half. But that in itself is an advantage because many states now are being made to look inwards so that we can generate our income within our own capacities, within our own comparative advantages. And I think that has started, you know, picking up. And we use that in order to show people that we must come and contribute to what we can generate within our own system. But one important thing is that people need to see, what do you do with the revenue that you collect from the people? So if you invest that revenue and it's in a transparent way, people are convinced, then you find that people will be saying, now they have seen the dividends of democracy. So in my own assessment, we should take advantage of this unfortunate situation where the oil has gone down. Well, it should be a blessing. It's a challenge, but this challenge, we should be able to convert it into an opportunity. We should be able to convert it into an advantage. So to me, it's the time now that we develop our states based on internally generated revenue and based on utilization of the revenue in a very transparent manner so that we build confidence in the people. Another issue is that seeing is believing. Everybody knows that the oil money cannot take us anywhere now. The price has gone down, the production has gone down, and therefore we should assess our comparative advantages. Each state should find out what area can the governor develop so that that state can excel in that particular commodity. Let us see in agriculture, like in Kano State, the production of wheat, the production of rice, the production of tomato, all what it requires is to create an enabling environment. Also, for the federal government to have a consistent national policy. Otherwise, whatever you do at state level, if there is no appropriate fiscal policy, appropriate monetary policy, appropriate sector policy, then you find that you are just dancing in one place. So I believe the state government should take advantage or to have comparative advantage. The federal government has already agreed to stop importation of wheat. And those wheat farmers, the state government should create an enabling environment, and then we collaborate with federal government to see that what are the challenges in the production of wheat. For example, there is issue of seeds, qualitative seeds. Then government should be able to create an enabling environment to purchase improved seeds. Then the issue of mechanization, then the issue of even anchor borrowers, so that farmers will be able to be assisted, but not free of charge. And then also the issue of uptakers, what happens to the products after being produced. So I think if we follow these things step by step, we shall be able to move forward.
All right, the lines are open already. I think we have a first caller from, well, Kano, of course. And Ado is calling in from Kano. Hello.
Hello, Minister. How are you?
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just introduce yourself and where you're calling from.
Yes, my name is Alaja Adufagi, calling from Kaduna.
Okay, right.
Yeah. What I want to contribute in this issue is the Buhari government and the APC government has done a lot to Nigeria. Like myself, I can tell you, during the time there is a bomb here, bomb there, any day I'm going out, I used to tell my family to forgive me whether I can come back alive or dead. And everything is in good condition now. Even they have achieved more. And what I want to tell Nigerians and all the people there with you, 2 years is too small for us in Nigeria to judge Buhari government. We have to allow him to finish his 4 years. And again, I give him another chance to get another 4 years to make it 8 years so that he can perform. Let me give an example with my excellency that is there, Ganduje, which I'm from Kano. Concourse has stayed with him for 4 years. They've done a little. But after they came back again for another 4 years, what did they do in Kano now? Kano has become like Lagos, or I can say a mini London. So definitely Nigerians have to allow this government to continue at least for that 4 years, and after that 4 years, to give them another 4 years to see what they can perform. And I wish and I pray to God to give our president a good health to come back to Nigeria and continue from where he stopped. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Let's go over to Ibadan Center. And we have moved a little bit into how you could tackle the challenges you have with the economy. And of course, Dr. Ganduje has talked about agriculture. Let's take that to Oyo State, for instance, and say, how are we faring with agriculture? Keyed into what this government said at the beginning when it came into office, and how has that been replicated in your state, for instance, agriculture?
Thank you very much. Let me, in answering your question, let me first and foremost say that in my own study of economics, whether you are talking of development in Britain, in America, or even in Asia, you need strong leadership. You need commitment. And I'm saying without any equivocation that this government, the President, Buhari, and the APC, if nothing else, they have brought transparency consistency, and above all, I'm talking as a governor, every one of us is now more careful in whatever we do, because you know that he will not spare you if you are corrupt, no matter how close you are to him. So that mindset is already helping in this country. Now, quickly in agriculture, we are doing what we call integrated agriculture in Oyo State. That is integrated organic farming in Oyo State. We will not be using fertilizers. We have visited Songhai farms in Benin Republic, and we have invited them to Oyo State. And we are starting what you call integrated farming, where we are not only concentrating on any particular product line or produce. We will have vegetables, we will have cash crops, we will have aquaculture, we will have livestock. In fact, it's a value chain system that we're having. So we must start from the beginning to the end. And we set up what we call incubation centers, which will now have satellite centers serving that incubation centers, where we produce, and we have engaged about 5,000 youths starting in that zone. And we will replicate this in all the six zones of Oyo State. And this, we believe, will have a multiplier effect in all that we do. Not only this, we will be engaging almost 1 million people through this outgrower scheme, through youth training, through adult exposure, and we are working in tandem with IITA. Don't forget, Oyo State is lucky in the sense that you have the highest concentration of research agricultural institutes in Nigeria, in Oyo State. You have IITA, you have IAR&T, you have NIHOT, you have others. So we believe that with this competitive or comparative advantage of having these people around us, we want to use that to promote what we call integrated organic agriculture. And we just started a couple of months ago, and we believe that this will help us to turn us into what I call the food basket of at least the South, because Oyo State has the largest landmass in the whole of the South, over 28,545 meters square. And we believe we can leverage on this, and about 85% of it is arable land. So we believe that in agriculture, we will be encouraging outgrowers, we will be encouraging youths, we will be encouraging integrated organic agriculture. And I think this has helped us.
All right, we'll still return to you. Right. Okay, we'll still return to you in a moment. But let's quickly go back to the phones now. We have a Tony calling in from Anambra. Hello, Tony.
Hello?
Yes, Tony, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just go ahead. Right, I think that call has been dropped somehow. Just encourage you to keep the calls coming. Yes, Governor Ajimobi was explaining a thing or two about agriculture and how they decided to, boost production in Oyo State. But let me, since we are still on the subject of agriculture, let me take on you, Professor Kabir Mato. In speaking to the people, Governor Rufai said he had largely, fulfilled his promises, at least part of it, in the last 2 years to the people of Kaduna State. Now, how would the people of Kaduna really assess, for instance, agriculture, which you superintend over at that state?
Well, thank you very much. I think the most important thing to, take into consideration as far as the issue of leadership is concerned is the ability of a leader to take decision. And I think one of the major problems that, bedeviled this country for a very long time has been the absence, the lack of capacity on the part of leaders, especially during this, civilian dispensation, to be able to take actions that are very decisive, that will lead to the transformation of the lives of, the citizens in a particular political environment. This we do very well in Kaduna, no matter whose ox is actually grown. In the area of agriculture, we've come up with a lot of concepts, and fundamentally underlying this concept is the idea of changing the context with which especially the young citizens of our state view agriculture. If they say you are a farmer, the impression that people get is that you are a poor person, you are a villager, you are uneducated, etc., etc. What we have done, what we are doing now is to be able to change that. We are changing that narration. Agriculture is now a profession. Young, able-bodied, 70% of our population, for God's sake, we're the third largest state in the country in terms of population. After Kano, Lagos, the third is Kaduna. And then 70% of that population is below the age of 35. So it's really a very serious situation, and a lot of them have gone to school. A lot of them are graduates either from the university, polytechnics, etc., etc. And then the notion, a narrative over time has been you graduate and then you look for a white-collar job either in the bank or government institution, etc., etc. And the reality is that these jobs do not exist any longer. So what we are doing now is encouraging a lot of our young people to go back to agriculture, and that we have done. For instance, Kaduna is the first state in this country where we are introducing the farm settlement methodology, where young people, boys and girls, are being encouraged to go and participate. Land has been cleared, land is allocated, and then seedlings and the entire agricultural value chain is being taken care of, so that you produce, and at the end of the cropping season, whatever is produced, the cost of production is determined, and then what is sold, you have your own. So in Kaduna, we're in the process of producing a lot of young millionaires. If Nigerian governments, for that matter, have this idea of saying we produce so number of billionaires. In Kaduna, I assure you that by the end of this cropping season, we will be able to produce thousands of otherwise very young, eligible boys and girls who hitherto were out of job, becoming millionaires. That's our first. So these farm settlements, we've cleared a very large expanse of land, one in Laduga, in Kechia local government area, and another one in Anchau, Kubau local government area, with a large body of water where, apart from rain-fed agriculture, we're also going to do, a lot of irrigation agriculture. That's one fundamental area. And, just like the governor of Kano State said, in Kaduna, we have advantage, we have comparative advantage. We are very much into the CBN Anko borrowing program. We're also discussing with NIRSAL with a view to getting their involvement, so that we have a data bank of thousands of farmers that will get involved with NIRSAL, so that they'll be able to provide the support from the beginning till the end. And I assure you that at the end of the day, it's the better for it. In fact, in the last cropping season, it is there you can see that for the first time, people, a lot of us in Kaduna State are Muslims, just like we have a substantial number of Christians, but the number of people that have paid their money intending to go for pilgrimage has, has more than doubled. And most of them are from rural areas. They are not people in Kaduna, just like in some other states. We don't sponsor people on pilgrimage anymore. So you have to work for it. So this is to show you that agriculture is working, and it remains a veritable tool of resolving our especially the social crisis that we have among a teeming, young population that is otherwise jobless. So we are using agriculture as a tool of not just social liberation, but also economic emancipation of our people. And then very briefly, in response to what Professor Otumi said about the agitation of governors scrambling to take money out of excess crude, especially in the last administration or in the previous administration, I think that had to do basically with the fact that it was very clear that if they did not scramble to take these resources, that resources will be squandered at the center. And as such, each and every one of them. So all of, yes. And I think that made a lot of sense. This was the argument that quite a lot of them were making. If they didn't take the resources,
we'll look at that as we go.
The resources will be squandered at the center. So
let's return to the phones briefly. And we have a Nelson who's calling in from Port Harcourt. Nelson, if you're still on the line, go ahead. Yes, Nelson, are you still on the line from Port Harcourt?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening. Go right ahead.
Yes, I'm calling from Port Harcourt.
Nelson, we said to you earlier, turn down the volume of your TV. You're on, so go ahead. Well, we'll just restate here that for those calling in, as soon as your name appears on screen, it means your call has been taken. Turn down the volume of your TV and go straight to the point. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll look at other aspects of 2 years of this administration, and we'll see what has been replicated in the states too, which are run by the APC administration. Stay with us. On Tuesday Live, we'll be back shortly.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, so plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We're looking at 2 years of the Buhari administration, and we're back here in the studio. Let's still take a little step forward. This has to tie somehow with agriculture, which was meant to not only produce food, but also create jobs. And Dr. Maduekwe, how well has the plan to create jobs succeeded in these 2 years?
That is very clear, because this administration came with a teeming youth support base. I recall those days of the campaign, His Excellency was always worried these millions of youth that would be at the venue 2 days before his arrival, how was he going to feed into their expectations? So managing expectation became part of the early challenges for this administration. And so the entire economic package was supposed to be holistic. Fine, we have taken agriculture as one of the quick wins, and already we are seeing the result. Within 2 years, nobody believed that we can, be producing almost 60% of what we consume in the area of rice revolution, not talk about the export. And as always, the cynics always want to think that the administration is not serious in what they want to do. But I'm happy that the result always proved the cynics wrong. The Minister for Agriculture, a French graduate, have proven that even though he's of French background in training, he has done far better than most who were agricultural, trained ministers. In the same area, you find out that because the holistic arrangement of the job creating approach, my minister, the Minister for Information, has also made it clear that the Ministry of Information is no more for song and dance and drama. It's all about job creation, because like Professor Tommy mentioned, oil should be seen as a bonus. So what we have above our shoulders, what we have in our head, should be what should drive our economy. That's the creative industry. And it became the focus for the third quarterly presidential business forum, where the issue of creative industry and the digital economy was highly much on focus. And I'm happy to say that the governor of Kano State here, when I visited his state as part of my tour for courtesy, gave us pledged about 450 indigenes of Kano State from 44 local governments to be trained in the art of motion picture production. Because like you know, motion picture production by Nigerian Bureau of Statistics is now running very close to agriculture as the quickest area of getting people, the youth, engaged. Our youth are very happy with this digital platform. And so any training you give to them has a multiplier effect in that regard. I'm continuing with the same tour with Cross River State by second. So what I'm trying to say, therefore, that not just in the area of agriculture, the position of government is for us to rediscover ourselves. And rediscovering ourselves means that we got to be creative. We got to make, produce what we eat. We have to produce what we consume. We have to understand that we can be self-sustainable. And again, coming a little bit back to the elementary economics, as we are told, that when a country is in recession, the two things they must do is to go into overgear in production and spending. And this administration have lived through to it. Last year, the capital projects were like 1.2 trillion. It has never happened before in this country. And this year, they're going to triple that. The capital, this year budget captured about 3 times that 1.2 trillion. It's all going to go into capital. I'm happy to say that when I was returning home from the east over December, I suddenly came to a junction they call the Shago, and I saw the dualization of the 2 roads from Enugu to Port Harcourt. That is a huge investment in the area of capital. It is when those capital infrastructures are made that even if inflation can come down. The man carrying his tomato from Zaria to Port Harcourt, 10 trailers of tomatoes can arrive, and he can sell them at the cost of, because the roads are good. So this government is doing so well in the area of stimulating the economy so that there will be job creation in a holistic angle.
Right. Toby, put out a notice today of vacancies for 10 people, and you're likely to get, 100,000 vying for those 10 places. But job creation was one of the planks of this administration. Has it fulfilled that, or is it on the path to creating these jobs that, this army of youths who are out there, some of them highly qualified, And Danido.
Like I've maintained, this administration is focusing on the fundamentals, and that is, for me, in terms of job creation, what kind of jobs. Previously, when people are thinking of coming out of universities, they're thinking of, where do I work next? What job do I go? What job do I get? Which government office do I apply to? Or what bank, especially, am I going to apply to? But that mentality is changing. It's now, what jobs can I create? We're trying to create an entrepreneurial mentality where you're not just focused on where do I get a job from, but how do I create a job? Look at the Aso Villa Demo Day, for instance, organized by the the Office of the Vice President. It brought in about we had, I think we saw about 300 applications from young people who had created innovations, and they had a mountain of other people who were also working with them on those innovative ideas. Those are the kind of jobs that we should be thinking of for the future. Look at the fourth right now in the world generally. We're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. We're not talking about trains, and we're not talking about locomotives with steam engines or those miniature creations. We're talking advanced technology. We're talking about drone technology. We're talking about artificial intelligence, and this is the drive in terms of the ICT sector of this administration. Look at with the Aso Villa Dome Day and other examples. Now, also when you look at the N-Power scheme itself, which has so far employed about 200,000 young graduates who have degrees in either HND or the university degrees. These guys are not just getting jobs to earn 30,000, but they are earning skills. And you see, skills are the fundamentals. That is what we have not previously focused on. Giving people the right skills that just does not make them employable just to run into a career, but to have skills enough to go outside the career and be able to stand alone. And this is very important in terms of job creation. And so far so good, we've been able to see that in almost every single sector of the economy.
All right. Well, we took our cameras out to talk to Nigerians on how they assess this administration, what are the achievements they have seen, and let's take a listen.
I think the president has achieved the security. I think we have a good security right now. I think we should actually try for the youth to go into farming right now, because that's agriculture is a good stand for Nigeria to grow the best economy right now we have so far. All right.
And what I want him to do more is just issue of this education, health. These are the two issues.
The areas Buhari has done well is in the aspect of tackling corruption. If you can see very well, corruption is really mitigated by the step he has taken. So I think those are the two laudable things I can ever talk about him or his achievement in the government so far.
Matters, we really appreciate him for that. And even the bomb blast at reduced, it's not like before. And our Chibok vets are back. Some of them are back home. We really appreciate him for that.
The present government of Alhaji Muhammad Buhari has done very well in security, extremely well. I am from Northeast, and my area was occupied for Boko Haram for about 7 days. So there is nothing we can say. In fact, I'm almost speaking on behalf of my people that he has done extremely well in the area of security. He has also done reasonably well in trying to fix the economy. At least some of the measures he put in place may appear now as painful. But believe me, in my opinion, in the long run, it will be an asset.
Well, Nigerians, they are assessing 2 years of the Buhari administration, and we have heard so much about security and, of course, the need for the youths to take to farming. But let's turn our attention to another aspect that has been very challenging for this nation, and Governor Ajimabi, let me start with you on this. And it's always been said that you do not have nearly enough people invested in this country because doing business is a Herculean task in Nigeria. This administration says it wants to attack that and make it a business-friendly country, the ease of doing business. Let's get your assessment of that.
Very much, Stover. I think first and foremost, I want to add to the previous comments that we are talking of unemployment. Many of our graduates are not employable. That is first and foremost we must realize. We must have an educational system that caters for our local graduates and for our peculiarities. Today, one of the highest employers of labor is agriculture. But we've talked so much about agriculture. Another highest employer of labor is technology. The world is going technology. And I believe that Nigeria today, we should begin to encourage that transfer of technology as well as to develop local technology. I give an example. In Oyo State, even though the federal government has done a lot in the area of employment with its Empower scheme, you have N-Teach, N-Agric, N-Health, which to a large extent is trying to employ many graduates. But I think more and more, we should begin to have middle-level manpower. We should begin to have people of those days where, do you know, they will have technical training. They will come up from the UK, from America, with some of these middle-level certificates. And they work in many companies. Today in Nigeria, many of our artisans, do you know that even there was a time that Julius Berger, each time they wanted to employ artisans, they would go to neighboring countries because we did not have sufficient and efficient, professionally qualified middle-level manpower. So what we should begin to concentrate upon is like what we are doing in Nigeria, in Oyo State today. We are starting by October a technical university, not a university of technology, a technical university where we have homegrown technicians qualified to work in software engineering, to work in cyber security, to work in entrepreneurship technology, to be able, not only working in this university, we have also situated this university within the complex of our industrial park and our free trade zone. What are we doing with this? We want to marry theory with practice. We want to marry technology with entrepreneurship. And we believe that the moment we begin to do that homegrown technology, we believe this will help us in improving and preparing our people for employment and for empowerment. By the way, we should begin to look at our educational system. For me, what is education? Education is structured information. What is structured information? It's knowledge. What is knowledge? It's skill. What is skill? It's empowerment. What is empowerment? It's ability to earn a living. So I believe that we should begin now to train people, change some of our educational system to be able to cater for our local requirements. And I believe this will help us to go a long way in our employment drive. Finally, let me also say that we must continue to encourage our students at all levels to be able to have practical experience in whichever area they are concentrating on. I believe to a large extent, this will generally help us in our employment generation. Finally, is the fact that infrastructure is essential for creating an enabling environment for industrialization. And I believe the federal government has started right, as has been mentioned by many of my colleagues over there. That is to spend so much to help infrastructural development. See what the federal government has done when it comes to transportation, railway system, road system, airport. And I must commend the federal government. Look at the way they quickly built Abuja airport. As advertised, it was done within the specified period. So what I'm talking about now is really attitudinal change in our education, marrying theory with practical. We have a lot of theoretical postulations in these countries. We have many professors, doctors. Professor Patti told me he's a very brilliant professor. But the problem with Nigeria is the art of implementation. We have theory, theory, theory. We have budget, budget, budget. Let us perform as advertised. Implementation. Thank you very much.
We'll return to the issue of that, but since you mentioned the subject of education and the issue of technology, I know Kano itself at one point in time had a relationship, a mutual relationship with Abia, for instance, in terms of local technologies. Is that still on? And how do you tie that with, I know there's a drive for education.
Well, it's still on. Kano being the most populous state in the Federation, Kano being a commercial center of the north, even a commercial nerve center to some West African countries. We should take advantage of our population and also take advantage of our, by history, we are commercially oriented people. So what we have done in Kano State, apart of going into partnership with other states that have excelled in one area or another in terms of skill acquisition, first of all, what I have done is to carry out a research, a survey, to find out what are the skills that when youth are being able to acquire, they can get job directly. Because there's one thing to provide a skill, there's another thing to see whether that skill is marketable at the moment. So we carried out a survey and we found out we have about 24 skills that are lacking among the youth. 24 skills that immediately you acquire them, you will be able to get a job or you will be able to create a job for yourself. So we have decided to build an ultra-modern skill acquisition center in Kano that will accommodate those 24 skills, and it's a multi-million naira building, and now it is at a roofing stage. Very soon we have already ordered for the equipment, various type of equipments. We have not stopped there. The issue then, you have to identify the people that require skill acquisition, because there is one thing, if you just put people together without classifying them based on their experience they have, based on their knowledge, then you find that you are involving people who are not really interested in what you want them to do. So we have succeeded in identification of the youth and categorizing them. What areas do you need? And before we complete the mansion for acquisition center, we have decided to use other institutions so that at least the youth will start getting some skills even before the center is completed. For example, the Peugeot automobile, we discussed with them. They have various courses on automobile, and we identified youth who are very much interested, and we sent 75 youth for 1 year. They completed, they graduated, we built mechanic workshops, we gave them the tools, and then they are now busy, repairing, especially cars that with computers. And also, we sent another 150 youth just recently. We sent 100 boys, 50 girls, because we discovered that there's a gap in terms of women participation in the economy. You find that there are some areas that are being dominated by women, by men. And such areas can also be better managed by women. So we decided to look for women, for girls who are interested in motor mechanics. And we got up to 50 of them. In fact, more than 50. So they are learning how to repair vehicles. And also, we collaborated with the NDE. We took 250 boys in ICT skill acquisition. We trained them. We graduated them. We took another 500. We graduated them. And you can see that when we complete our own center, that is the crux of the matter, then that center can carry at least 5,000 youths at a time on different skills. We shall be able to be training them, and not for employment by government, but for them to be self-employed and even to disperse into the country so that they can get opportunities. So that is what we are doing at the moment.
Okay, Professor Otobe, there are two issues I'd like to put to you. One, the question of our education system. You heard Governor Ajimobi say, well, so many of our graduates are unemployable. That's on one side. And second, in the earlier days, you were a company executive. I still want to return to the issue of companies are shutting down, but you still require more investments, the ease of doing business. So,
in many ways, they're related. First, the educational system. Part of the challenge that we have is that our immediate post-colonial educational trajectory was one that was designed to give you a certificate to maintain the system. It did not train you to be creative and to produce. A Brazilian educator from the 60s I'd like to talk about, called Paulo Freire, writes about the pedagogy of the oppressed. The colonial mindset is, let's produce doctors who can treat them, save them from dying, they can maintain this, maintain that, but not to challenge them. And our educational system continued like that. We need to rethink how we educate people. The teaching of entrepreneurship is one of the things that's a boss, if you will, in the university system. And I continue to challenge my colleagues. I say, you don't teach entrepreneurship. You implant in people who are learning whatever to be entrepreneurial. So that when you're studying history, you can use history to create opportunities for jobs and make a difference. And you do, one former NUC chairman, executive secretary, did actually invite me to speak to vice chancellors about these ideas. And we need to change. Look, America's triumph as an economy came principally from the role that a land-grant university played in America's agricultural ascendance. Today, Nigeria in the last year has output in rice that is more than Nigeria's needs, but a significant wastage has not allowed Nigeria to catch up as it should, even though it's now producing more rice than Nigerians can consume. This is the kind of thing that a land-grant university works in partnership. The whole agricultural extension system came precisely out of the kind of work that land-grant universities did in America. So we need to build a connect between our educational institutions that must be problem-solving, practical, not just give people certificates and knowledge. I keep talking about certificated illiterates, but we need to find practical people who can use the knowledge. That's one part of it. The other part of it, coming to investment, and here I really need to plead, one of the biggest problems that we have is that our institutions are weak. Our institutions are not strong enough to support the many things we need to do, enterprise being one of them. What are institutions? And when we talk about institutions, we will think of buildings, and no. They are essentially boundaries to conduct. Look, the way many public office holders conduct themselves in public office is such that investors don't want to come, because this governor approves these things. His tenure ends. His successor cancels everything before that. The person who made investments and has lost it because there was a change of leadership in the state will be leery of further investment. He will do one of two things. He will either not invest at all, or he will hedge. And hedging involves costs. These costs, which are transaction costs, reduce his competitiveness. And so our economy is unable to compete as it should because we have these practices that weaken our institutions. Now, people who hold office must know. I give an example just last week. Back in 1997, I spent a couple of weeks at Japan's Ministry of International Trade and Industry in Tokyo. If you go to MITI, you will not be able to tell where the public sector stops and the private sector begins. They see themselves in that ministry as facilitating the advance of Japan's private sector. But you see, in a certain way, there's a disposition in the public service in our country in which public servants see themselves as policemen trying to stop these terrible business people. That is the truth of the matter. And so this affects the environment of business. So we need a new consciousness, a new thinking in which every civil servant sees, oh, if this business makes progress, that's future taxation, that's expansion of government, that's growth, that's opportunity for our children, and it's literally going out looking for businessmen, giving them, you know, in the United States of America, there's something that's called TIFA funding. TIFA is Tax Incentives Finance Authority. That means that a private business can come and the state government, usually even local governments, will give you loan guarantees, will give you grants so that you can start a business in that area, because they can project that if this business starts in this neighborhood, it will be anchored, attracting other businesses. In 10 years, the kind of taxes that can come from that neighborhood will be 10 times what it is today. And so they can do those things. We need to have that kind of orientation in how we welcome business.
Professor Kabir Matu,
yeah.
In many of the states, we find that the agitation has been, well, what's happening at the federal level stays at the federal level. The states, it's either they have their own agenda, or where there is something that they could partner with the federal government, it doesn't really trickle down, it doesn't really work that way. How are you faring in Kaduna? There are so many projects that this administration came up with, and after publicizing them, you hear that, well, the states think that's not their priority at this time.
No, I don't think so. All the projects, all the programs that you know, this administration came on board, and I think you know, one of the easiest things going for us really is, like I said, the commitment and the decisiveness on the part of the leadership. Recently, Kaduna was ranked the easiest state to do business in this country. You know, I don't know if there is any state in Nigeria where you could go for land and you get certificated within 1 month. In Kaduna, we have achieved that. We have a Kaduna State Investment Promotion Agency that works very closely with the Ministry of Commerce, Industries and Tourism. And what they do basically is to facilitate from the beginning to an end. And as such, we find a lot of, take for instance, we have one of the largest poultry farms in West Africa. In fact, the largest poultry farm in West Africa being constructed in Kaduna. And hopefully it will be, commissioned sometimes in September. This type of investment, that's not the only one. We have Vicampro in the area of agriculture also, somewhere in our local government area, all this, potato chips and what you eat throughout supermarkets in Nigeria, incidentally, comes from South Africa. And we have in Kaduna State and in the neighboring Plateau State, the fertile agricultural land to produce that in very heavy commercial quantity. That we are also, addressing. So I am saying that we have created an enabling environment where business is made easy in Kaduna State, and therefore we find this camaraderie on the part of a lot of investors, both within the country and outside of the country, coming in. And it's just, I think, a week, just 2 weeks or so when the acting president signed the executive orders relating to,
ease of doing business.
Yes, ease of doing business. Just like Professor Tome said, one of the major bottlenecks against, foreign investment, even internal investment in Nigeria, is the attitude of our public service bureaucracy. This policeman mentality. When you see a traffic warden on the street, he's hiding somewhere waiting for you to break the traffic rules so he can arrest you, instead of trying to maintain a free flow of traffic. It also boils down to our civil service. I mean, let's make it difficult. Let's make sure before it passes, you know, I have my own share, and so on and so forth. And this is the kind of thing that we do by introducing institutional reforms even within the public service and other to check, you know, some of these bottlenecks.
All right, let's take our cameras out again and see how the people assess the states. And let's watch this.
Governor Malam Nasru Erfai is doing very well. There is no area he did not touch, most especially our drainage. He makes sure that he repair all. And now, as I was speaking to you, if you on your tap, you get water, because I think it was last week they commissioned our water in Kaduna State. So the governor is doing perfectly fine. I'm
coming from Kogi State. The school, all the government school in my state have been on strike. Almost how many months now? I'm happy for Buhari because whenever you are going out, you go out freely and come home freely. Unlike before that, there is Boko Haram anywhere.
From Enugu State, it was not precisely. I think my state governor is actually doing well in infrastructure.
Well, a few of our respondents there talking about what they feel about their states. But let's hear from Toby the question of, like, for instance, you heard that schools have been shut for quite a while. And this, again, is an important aspect in everything that's been talked about here. You heard the comments about the education system. But if at that level, the foundation level, we're having challenges, how well do you think we can perform here?
It's a very negative thing that our educational system is in this sort of what's the word, moratorium or whatever the word is, but it's discouraging, because when you look at any society that is going to develop, that is going to grow, it starts from the educational system. What are you teaching the children, and what is the form in which they are being taught? For schools to be closed, this means that no teaching is even ongoing. You're giving the children a mentality that is already flawed in itself. I think our educational system needs an overhaul. We need to change how we teach children, what we teach the toddlers, because to prepare them for the 21st century, we're talking about China, we're talking about Japan, we're talking about globalization, where there's a free flow of traffic of expertise around. If we cannot produce graduates that are in themselves able to compete with people from other countries, there's going to be a problem. I think not just from the federal, we need to see state governors taking a conscious effort to change the educational systems within their states. Teach them, change what is being taught to them. Prepare their minds for the industrialization of the future, the fourth industrial revolution. Change their minds from how they perceive things. It's not more just ABC anymore. We're talking about coding. There has to be a conscious effort from all levels, especially even at the state levels, from the primary school education systems to the secondary school education systems, to change how we are teaching and what we are teaching our young children.
All right, we're in about the closing minutes of this program, so I'd like us to look at what's happening to Nigeria's image. How is Nigeria perceived now in the international community, and what to expect? Dr. Bandukwe.
It is quite an exciting moment now in the international community, because we have a leadership that is leading from the front. You can see that we are having so much of attraction of foreign funding, which before now wasn't as it was before, because there is confidence in the management of the resources that will be poured in, or the evidence that the little resources that have been poured in is more efficiently being used. It is something of note that the international financial institutions are giving us positive rating. When this administration started, there were some negative write-up in the economic magazine, and felt that we are not getting it right. But it's very funny that the same economic magazine came late last year to give high kudos to our Minister for Finance and said that she's resilient and that is pulling Nigeria out of recession within a very short time. And I think it is something that should be commended, because sometimes we hear the opposition say that President Muhammad Buhari lacks economic team. But if they lack economic team, you can see the miracle that is happening. The investment in capital project is tripling, which never before in this country. 1.2 trillion 2016, 3 times that value this time around. The World Bank and African Development Bank, they are contributing to our housing fund. Never before, our social investment plan, World Bank is contributing into it. For the first time in this country, we are caring about the poorest of the poor. We are caring about how to cut the vicious cycle of poverty, while we continue to create pull people out of poverty. In the past, we are talking about defining how rich we are by how many private jets Nigerians are flying. But today, the definition of who is a rich man is who can export how many million metric tons of rice. Dangote today, by 2020, will be the largest exporter of rice from Africa. Today, Koscharis is now talking about how many million metric tons of rice from Anambra. Today, Stallion, the Churchgate people, this year alone, they are producing about 1.7 million metric tons of rice. So the new definition of a big man in Nigeria is the one that would export how many million metric tons of rice. So you find out that on the international scene, Nigeria is being seen to be ready to take charge of their direction, because we have a good leadership that is fused into both the person of Mr. President and, of course, the person of the Vice President. There is no doubt that we have seen how mega Lagos State is in terms of what they are doing. And I must say that today you can feel the footprints of the Lagos economy in the federal economy, because there was a vision that there has to be a way to get to the center by using what the Southwest or the Lagos economy represent with what Buhari represent.
Well, Governor Ganduje, as we wind down, we've seen 2 years. What can we expect in the next 2 years?
I think we have to build on where the foundation has been laid on. What we are expecting in these 2 years is, first of all, consolidation of all the projects that we have started, all the programs that we have started. For example, the employment opportunities that are being created by the federal government. States must buy in so that we make them to be our own programs, and we add additional programs, because this employment opportunities for youth is very, very important, and it has to be sustained. So we must develop the appropriate policy guideline so that we create room for sustainability. And also, like one of the discussants here mentioned, when government comes in, the government tends to, leave all what other governments did before. But this one, we must change it. Whatever we inherit, we must continue to do it. So it must be our responsibility to see that we consolidate all what has been achieved so far, so that by the end of 4 years, we can see that all aspects of human development are being greatly improved.
Well, back to our Ibadan Center, Governor Jimobi, yes, progress has been made and still been made, but surely in this past 2 years, there are issues that you have seen from different perspectives, even as the government moves to improve the lot of the citizens. Now, what would you say should be the focus as the administration goes into the next 2 years? What would you prioritize?
We've all agreed the government has done quite well, and therefore we started from restoration. The government has restored peace, has restored confidence of people within Nigeria and outside Nigeria, and you could see that in the influx of investments. And what is important to investors is to have security that we have achieved, is to have infrastructure that we are achieving. It's work in progress. Above all, is to have strong leadership that is consistent, both in policy and in attitude. And that also must be supported by transparency. So the outside world is already seeing all these qualities in the leadership of our party. But above all, what should we look at in the next few years? Consolidation, consistency, and above all, working and doing all that we've said we would do. That is performing as advertised. And I use the opportunity to pray for the president to get well soon and come back. Because at this point in time of our development, we need a strong, consistent, and transparent leadership. And that he has been giving us. And I hope he can give us for the next, not only 2 years, but another 4 years. I thank you.
And we'll put the same question to Professor Patu Tomiles. You've seen a lot of things happen. If you were to say, look, this is the direction I think not so well, or you should be looking at doing things alternatively, what would you say?
Well, the world expects so much of Nigeria. African peoples everywhere expect leadership from Nigeria. Many times they don't think we give it to them. Nelson Mandela, before he died, was very pained that Nigeria was not offering the black man the leadership that it wanted to see. I have met many African leaders who express this frustration. The time is now for the Nigerian elite to rally around and say, this is our country going forward. Not everybody pulling at all kinds of ends. We need a country that we see an elite focused on the next generation, on how to make the life of our children better. The truth of the matter is that we have lived better lives than our children are living, and that is wrong. Every generation must make its shoulders available for the next generation to stand up so they can see tomorrow more clearly. That's the challenge of Nigeria.
Yes. I think we, as a country, need to have an institutionalization of our reforms. We're going to see a lot of developments, and as we are seeing now, but to consolidate them and to make them sustainable, we need to make sure that we're either codifying them or we're changing and reforming the systems. We don't just throw out, orders and all of that, but then we have to see a situation where these things become a part of our laws and our system. Also, we need to have an arm-in-arm relationship between the arms of government, between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, if we want to see development consolidated and also sustainable.
Right. And for Professor Kabir Matu.
Yes. Well, I think, the government at the center and in many states of this country have done very well in the last, 2 years. One of the major problems that governance has faced, or the Nigerian society generally has faced over time, was, this overburdening of what you call personality cult. We've not been able to build institutions and structures that will be propelling, that the entire society will revolve around. And I think what this government must do as a matter of achievement in the next 2 years will be to try to see that institutions rather than individuals, form the central kernel of our governance and administration. If that is done, then we will have free and fair elections. You can only have free and fair elections if you have a very solid, defined, electoral agency. You must also allow the legislature to be properly grounded. It must be rooted. The executive arm of government also must, on its own part, ensure that it has the capacity to effectively execute whatever laws that come up from the legislature, be it at the state or at the center. And the judiciary must be an institution. The crisis of corruption that has bedeviled the judiciary in the last several years is amazing. And if the judiciary is not sanctified, then of course we will be wasting our time, and therefore any effort that the government will do, be it the executive or the legislature, in order to ensure that the sanctity of the judiciary as the last hope of not just the common one, including the uncommon one. Because if the governor is offended, he goes to court. If the president feels, he goes to court. So it's not just the hope of the common one, it's also the hope of the uncommon one. And once the judiciary remains a bastion of corruption, then we're in trouble. So the institutions in this country must be deeply rooted if the democracy will make meaning.
Let me just quickly, as a party, should put this to you. You're a professor of comparative politics.
Yes.
Is there too much politicking in the polity?
Well, there is not much politicking in the polity so far. Don't drag us back to another discussion. I think what we are facing now basically is governance. Nigerians have been so...
Okay. Time for politics. Progress, governance, we are over-politicizing.
We're politicizing. Every segment of our national life is being extremely politicized, that's why people talk about the manner in which corruption is being fought. If you come from this way, they say, why will you come this way? Why didn't you go the other way? When the judicial officers, were apprehended, a lot of the legal minds came up with a lot of, grammar that all of us could not understand. It's pure and simple. If you're a judge or a justice, this is your earning. How will you have this? Simple. It's only in Nigeria that they get to your house, they find $40 million US, and then the next day you go to court and say, give me back my money. A public officer. I mean, this describes our politicking, this describes our own, even the rule of law, fundamental human rights have all been put in the basket of politics.
Okay. Well, it's on that note we'll have to round up this discussion, and we'd like to thank all our guests. Let's go over to Ibadan Network Center and say thank you very much to Governor Abiola Ajimobi of Oyo State. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Right. And then we say thank you to Professor Patu Tomi. Thank you for being with us. Toby, it's interesting being here with you.
Pleasure is mine.
Thank you. Professor Kabir Matu.
Thank you.
Okay, we've not seen you too.
I'm stuck in Kaduna.
Building agriculture.
Yes.
Dr. Badwekwe, it's been interesting having you join us on this discussion.
A pleasure.
And let us also give a thanks to the Governor of Kano State, Dr. Gov GANDUJE. We thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
And we say thank you to you for being part of this program. Next week we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.